Hello, students. Today is either Thursday, October 21st, or if you're in the other group, it's October 22nd, which would be an A day. But our objective is the same for those working on from Schoology, which is that we will multiply and divide fractions today. It's another more practice on what we have been doing. Please make sure that when you complete your lesson, that you update your binder and take any old materials can be taken home. So we don't want to update just now. So let's get started. We're going to start with multiplication and then we will do some division. So we have 8/15 times 3/10. So you can make this problem simpler by looking at those diagonals, and let me get a darker color that you can see this. I'm going to rewrite this problem number one on the next page, and that is 8/15 times 3/10. So smaller numbers are much easier to work with. So we're going to look at the diagonals, which would mean the numerator of one fraction, and compare with the denominator of the other. So first I have this 8 and I have this 10, and I'm going to ask, what is a number that is a factor of both 8 and 10, and what would be the largest number that I can think of? Well, I know that they're both divisible by 2. So I can say, well, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now I've made those numbers smaller. Now I'll look at the 3 and the 15. Well, 3 is actually a factor of 15. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. So now I can think of this problem as 4/5 times 1/5. Well, now those numbers are much easier to multiply. And when I multiply those, I have 4 times 1 is 4, and 5 times 5, which is 25, and that is simplified completely. So let's put that answer on the other paper. I hope you showed your work. We ended up with 4/5 times 1/5, which equals 4/25. Okay, in number 2, we need to convert 3 and 5/9 to an improper fraction. Right now, it's a mixed number. So we do 9 times 3 is 27 plus 5. That would be 32/9 times, and this is a negative, let's be aware of that, times 1 and 1/2. Again, we have to convert that to an improper fraction. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more is 3, so that would be negative 3/2. Now, when we look at this, we have to be reminded that a negative multiplied by a positive will give us a negative answer. So our answer will be negative. So, but I do think we should cross simplify. So before we even multiply across, let's see if we can reduce these numbers at all to make this problem a little easier. So 2 is a factor of 32. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 32 divided by 2 is 16. 3 is a factor of 9. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now it's much easier to multiply across. We have 16/3 times negative, and it's 1/1, which would give me a negative 16/3. And then I simplify that by dividing negative 16 by 3, which will go 5 times with 1/3 left over. So negative 5 and 1/3 is my final answer. So for number 3, we have a negative being multiplied by a negative. So first we have to convert those to improper fractions. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 more makes 19. So that's a new numerator of 19, still over 4, multiplied by, and I use the dot. Let's use the dot. Multiplied by 2/3. That's a negative 19. And we do have some cross simplification that we can do. We have 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 19 is a prime number, so we can't do anything with that. So I can rewrite this as negative 19 over 2 times 1 over 3. And that's a negative 1 over 3. So negative 19 times negative 1 is a positive 19, and 2 times 3 is 6. And when we divide 19 by 6, 6 times 3 is 18 with 1 left over. So that will be 3 and 1, 6 as a final answer. Good. So let's go on to the next group of 3. We have a negative 3/8 multiplied by 3 and 1/9. So we have to remember a negative times a positive, because the second fraction is positive, so the answer will be negative. Negative times a positive is negative. So the negative 3/8, we do not need to rewrite that at all. But the 3 and 1/9, we will write that as an improper fraction. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 more, make 28. So that would be 28 over 9. Now let's see if we can do any simplifying here to make our number smaller and easier to deal with. I noticed that 8 and 28 are both divisible by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. And I also noticed that 3 and 9 are both divisible by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So I can rewrite this problem as negative 1/2 times 7/3. And now I just simply multiply across. As I said, our answer will be negative. So negative 7 times 1 is 7. 3 times 2 is 6. And if we divide 7 by 6, we get 1 and 1/6. So that will be our final answer. It's negative 1 and 1/6. So for number 5, we have 2 mixed numbers, so we're going to have to convert them both to improper fractions with a numerator that's larger than the denominator. So we'll start with the first fraction. They're both positive. So we have 10 times 2 is 20, plus 7. So the first fraction would be 27 over 10 times 12 times 1 is 12, plus 11 more is 23. So we have 23 tenths, or excuse me, twelfths. So we can reduce that because 12 and 27 are both divisible by 3. And we cannot simplify the 10 and the 23. 23 is a prime number. So let's simplify the 27 divided by 3 is 9. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I can rewrite my fraction as 9 tenths times 23 fourths. And you may need to use a calculator today to complete some of these multiplications. We have 9 times 23 is 207, and 10 times 4 is 40. So now we know that's an improper fraction. Let's get that back to a mixed number. So I'll take 207 divide it by 40, and I know that 4 times 5 is 20, so that tells me that 40 times 5 is 200, with 7/40ths left over. So my final answer is 5 and 7/40ths. And then number 6, I have -10 times -5/24. Both of these are negative, which means our answer will be positive because a negative times a negative is positive. So I can rewrite the first fraction as -10/1 times -5/24. Now, on the diagonal with the 1 and the 5, there's nothing to simplify. I already have a 1 in the denominator. But in terms of the 10 and the 24, I can divide both of those by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. So then I can rewrite my problem as -5/1 times -5/12. And then I will just simply multiply. -5 times -5 is +25, and 1 times 12 is 12. And if we divide 25 by 12, which I'll do down here, I know that 12 times 2 is 24, which gives me 2 and 1/12 left over. So that's our final answer, 2 and 1/12 when expressed as a mixed number. So now we have some applications to do. So let's work on those. First, we have Jamie, who has been exercising. She burned 480 calories in an exercise class, and that was on Monday. She took a different class on the next day and burned 7/8 as many calories as she did on Monday. How many calories did she burn on Tuesday? So this is a multiplication problem. We are asked to multiply her Monday calories, 480, times her times 7/8, and we're asked to find out what are the Tuesday calories. And that's what we'll find out when we get the answer. So we will put a 1 in the denominator of 480. And one thing I noticed right away is that 8 is a factor of 480. I know that because 8 is a factor of 48, and just having that extra 0 to make it 480 means that it's still divisible. So 8 divided by 1, 8 is 1. Excuse me, 8 divided by 8 is 1. And 48 divided by 8 is 6. So therefore, 480 divided by 8 must be 6 with a 0, 60. So let's rewrite this problem as 60/1 times 7/1, which 60 times 7 is 420, and over 1, which equals 420. Now let's review what this problem is asking us. They're asking us how many calories did she burn on Tuesday. On Tuesday, she burned 420 calories. Number 8, we've got 2 cities, Franklin and Mayville. And if you struggle with reading those words, just think of this as F and this as M. So the tallest building in Franklin is 2/3, be careful, they wrote it in words. So the tallest building in Franklin is 2/3 the height of the tallest building in Mayville. If the tallest building in Mayville is 80 and 13/16 feet, find the height of the tallest building in Franklin. You will definitely need a calculator to do this. So we're talking about multiplying 80 and 13/16 times this 2/3 to see how tall the building in Franklin is. Now we need to convert that 80 and 13/16 to an improper fraction. So you're going to need a calculator for this. So 80 times 16 equals 1,280. So 80 times 16 is 1,280. And then we still need to add the numerator of 13, which will give us 1,293. So when we rewrite this fraction here, we will rewrite it as 1,293 over 16 times 2/3. And I do see that 3 is a factor of 1,293 and 2 is a factor of 16. So let's simplify. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 1,293 divided by 16 is 431. You can use a calculator to help you. So as we rewrite this problem, we have 431 over 8 times 1 over 1, which equals, of course, 431 over 8. And when we take that 431 and we divide it by 8, well, I know that 8 times 5 is 40. We bring down the 1. And I know that 8 times 3 is 24. And that would leave 7/8 left over. So our final answer will be 53 and 7/8. Now, what are we talking about here? This problem is in feet. So 53 and 7/8 feet. And the last two multiplication problems. Connor has 3 3/8 bags of mulch. If each bag covers 12.5 square feet, how many square feet can he cover? So we'll multiply 3 3/8 times 12 1/2. First, we'll convert those to improper fractions. So we'll multiply the denominator by the whole number. 8 times 3 is 24. Add the numerator, which makes 27/8. And in the second fraction, we'll multiply 2 times 12, which is 24, plus the 1 in the numerator, 25/2. Again, smaller numbers are better numbers, but we don't have anything we can do here. We have an even number here and an odd number here, even number here, an odd number on the 27. We're just going to have to multiply those out. So 27 times 25 is 675, and 8 times 2 is 16. When we divide 675 by 16, 16 goes into 67. Well, I know 4 times 16 is 64. Now bring down the 5. I know that 16 times 2 is 32, and that gives me 3/16 left over. So our final answer is 42 and 3/16. And remember, we're talking about square feet because we're laying the mulch on the landscaping or the flower beds. So we're talking about square feet, its area. And that's that. So our last multiplication problem, Wayne had 16 3/4 gallons of gas in his car. If he used 2/5 of the gas in his tank, how many gallons of gas does he have left? So we're going to multiply 16 3/4 times 2/5, and we will convert the 16 and 3/4 to an improper fraction. 16 times 4 is 64, plus the 3 in the numerator makes 67/4 times 2/5. Now, in terms of simplifying this further, the 5 is not a factor of 67, and this, in fact, is a prime number. So we can't do anything with that, but the 2 and the 4, we know 2 is a factor of 4. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and we can rewrite this problem as 67/2 times 1/5. And when we multiply those across, we have 67/10. So we need to divide 67 by 10. And we know that 10 times 6 is 60. So we will have 7/10 left over. So our final answer, 6 7/10. And what are we talking about? We're talking about gallons of gas. Oops, we still have one more thing to do. This is not the leftover. This is how much he used. So we have, he used 6 7/10 gallons of gas, or 67/10 of gas, but he started out with 16 3/4. So we need to take one more step and subtract 6 7/10 from 16 3/4. So we know from the work we already did that 16 3/4 is 67/4. So let's change the color. And we know that 6 7/10 is 67/10. But now we need a denominator. So the LCM, the least common multiple of 4 and 10, well, if we look at factors of 10, we have 10, 20, 30, and then we have 40. But if I look at 20, that's a multiple of 4 and 10. So I'm going to convert both these denominators to 20ths. And I think I'm going to use some extra space for this. So this is problem number 10. So we have 67/4 minus 67/10. So we will rewrite the 67/4 with 20ths in our denominator. So that's 4 times 5. And 67 times 5 is 335. So the 67/4 can be rewritten as 335/20 minus, now let's look at the 67/10. We want to convert that to 20ths. So we know that 10 times 2 is 20, so 67 times 2 is 134. So we'll rewrite the 67/10 as 134 20ths. Now, I already have my denominator. My answer is a denominator of 20. I just need to simply subtract 134 from 335, which gives me 201. And if I divide 201 by 20, I get 10 1/20. And this is how much gas is left over. 10 1/2 gallons of gas. So let's put that on our paper. So we have 10 not 1/2, excuse me, 1/20. There we go. I forgot to put my 0. 10 1/20 gallons of gas left over. That was a very tricky problem. I hope you kept up with that. So let's look at the division problems. When we divide, we're going to remember to keep the first fraction, change um, the division to multiplication, and invert the fraction. In other words, flip it on its reciprocal. So for number 1, we have 1 and 5/16 divided by 7 and 1/12. So first we convert to improper fractions. So 16 times 1 is 16, plus 5 is 21/16. And we change the division to multiplication, and we invert 7/12 to 12 over 7. We look for any opportunity to make these numbers smaller. And I know that 16 and 12 are both have 4 as a factor. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. 16 divided by 4 is 4. I know that 7 and 21 both have 7 as a factor. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. So I can rewrite that as 3/4 times 3 over 1, which equals 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 1 is 4. And 9 divided by 4 is 2, because 2 times 4 is 8, and 1/4 left over. So number 2, we have negative 6/25 divided by 5 and 2/5. So we will rewrite, we have negative 6 over 25, and then we will change the, before we do that, let's take a look at this 5 and 2/5. Let's change that to an improper fraction. So we have 5 times 5 is 25, plus 2 is 27/5. So we will invert that to 5 over 27. Now we have plenty of opportunity here to simplify this. 5 is a factor of 25. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now, with the 6 and the 27, we can divide those both by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So we can rewrite this fraction as negative 2/5 times 1/9. And when we multiply across, negative times a positive would be negative 2 over 45. And that's our final answer. We cannot simplify that anymore. So for number 3, we'll first write the improper fractions. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 more is 24. So that's 24 over 5 divided by 3 times 9 is 27, plus 5 more is 32, divided by 32/9. So now we'll rewrite this where we keep the first fraction, change the division to multiplication, and invert the second fraction. So as to the 9 and the 5, we cannot really simplify, but I can divide the 24 and the 32, let's see, by 8. Those are each divisible by 8. So 24 divided by 8 is 3. 32 divided by 8 is 4. Much easier to work with those smaller numbers. Now I multiply straight across. They're both positive. I'm just double checking. So 9 times 3 is 27. 5 times 4 is 20. And 27 divided by 20 is 1, and 7/20 left over, which we cannot simplify any further. So that is our final answer. So let's look at the next set. We have negative times a negative, and a negative times a negative will give us a positive. So first, let's make those improper fractions. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 more is 11. So we have 11, negative 11 over 6, divided by negative 1/2. And let's rewrite that as a negative 11/6. We'll change the division to multiplication, and we'll invert 1/2 to 2 over 1. So I can simplify a little bit. I can divide 2 by 2 for 1 and 6 by 2 for 3. And now I'm ready to multiply across. Negative 11 times negative 1 is positive 11. 3 times 1 is 3. So 11 divided by 3, remember that's negative. No, that's positive because it's negative times a negative is a positive. So that's positive. So 11 divided by 3, we know that 3 times 3 is 9. So that's 2/3 left over. So our final answer is a positive 3 and 2/3. I hope you're keeping up with this. So let's look at number 5. We have 1 3/4 divided by a negative again, negative 2 1/10. So let's make our improper fractions. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. So that would be 7/4 divided by 10 times 2 is 20, plus 1 is 21. So that would be a negative 21 over 10. So let's rewrite this as multiplication with reciprocal in the second fraction. That would be 7 over 4 times 10 over negative 21. And right away, I can see that 7 and 21, 7 is a factor of 21, so I can divide. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3, and I still have a negative sign here. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So these smaller numbers will be much, much easier for me to handle. So 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 3 is 6. And remember, it's a positive times a negative. So that would be negative 5/6. And finally, number 6, we have 4 and 11/16 divided by 6. So here's how we handle it. First, we have to make an improper fraction out of the first number. 16 times 4 is 64, plus 11 more makes 75. So that would be 75 over 16. We change the division to multiplication, and we can think of this 6 as 6 over 1. When we invert it, it's 1 over 6. So I cannot simplify the 16 and the 1 here and here, but I can divide the 75 and the 6 by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 75 divided by 3 is 25. So that got me to reduce my numbers a little bit. So 25 times, multiplying across, 25 times 1 is 25, and 16 times 1 is 32. And I can't simplify that anymore. That is done. I do not have any numbers that go into both 25 and 32. So 4 more problems, and then we're done. So a jug contains 20 3/8 cups of lemonade. If you are serving guests at a summer picnic, how many glasses can you fill if each guest gets 1.5 cups of lemonade? So this is your clue that this is a division problem. 20 3/8 divided by 1 and 1/2. So we will rewrite those fractions as improper fractions. So 8 times 20 is 160, plus 3 is 163 over 8. And then 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 more is 3. So we're going to multiply that. Well, first we'll divide that by 3/2. And now we'll do our first fraction as is, change the division to multiplication, and then multiply by the reciprocal. So I cannot simplify 163 and 3, but I can simplify the 2 and the 8. Divide them both by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So when I multiply across, 163 times 1 is 163, and 4 times 3 is 12. And when I divide 163 by 12, I have 12, 24, 36, 13. Okay, we have 7/12 left over. Okay, number 8. A bookshelf is 3 1/2 feet long. If each book to be placed on the shelf is 2 1/4 inches wide, how many books can fit? So we have this bookshelf, and we have books all of the same width. Each book is 2 1/4 inches wide. We don't have any skinny ones or fat ones. They're all the same. So this is a division problem because we want to find out how many books can fit on the shelf. So this would be 3 1/2 divided by 2 1/4. So first we'll convert those to improper fractions. 3 times 2 is 6, plus the 1 in the numerator is 7. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 1 in the numerator is 9. Okay, let's rewrite this, keeping the first fraction, changing the division to multiplication, and inverting the second fraction. So what I can do is I can divide the 2 and the 4 each by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I don't know why I wrote that. Getting tired late at night. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I will multiply across, which gives me 14/9, which is, let me just double check. 9/4. Invert. 7 times 2 is 14. 9. This does not seem right. I feel like we made a mistake somewhere. 3 times 2 is 6. You know what we did? This 3 1/2, that's feet, and the books are in inches. So we need to start over. First thing we need to know is how many inches are in a foot. So 1 foot equals 12 inches. And so we have 3 of them, so that's 36 inches. 1/2 of a foot is 6 inches. So we have 3 times 12 is 36, plus 6, 42 inches. That's what our problem is. 42, we'll put that over 1, divided by 2 1/4. And let's convert 2 1/4 to an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So that would be 42 over 1 divided by 9 over 4, and we will rewrite that as 42 over 1 multiplied by 4 over 9. Now, I can simplify this. I can divide 9 by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 42 divided by 3 is 14. So now I have 14 times 4, which is 56. 3 times 1 is 3. And 56, we will divide it by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. And 3 times 8 is 24. And that gives me 2/3 left over. So it can fit 8 and 18 and 2/3 books. But when you have problems like this, and we have something like number of people or number of meals or number of books, we will not count the 2/3 of a book because we can't put 2/3 of a book on a shelf. So our final answer really is only going to consist of the whole number, which is 18 books. Okay, let's go to the last two problems. Mrs. Carson's science class is doing a science experiment. She has 17 and 1/3 cups of water that she's going to evenly distribute to each of the eight groups. How much water will each group get? So it's going to be 17 and 1/3 divided by 8. So the first thing we'll do is convert that 17 and 1/3 to an improper fraction. So 17 times 3 is 51, plus the 1 in the numerator makes it 52 over 3. And we'll change the division to multiplication, and instead of 8 over 1, we'll have 1/8. So we can divide. The 3 and the 1 stand, but the 8 and the 52 can be simplified by dividing by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 52 divided by 4 is 13. And I said you might need a calculator to help you today. Now we multiply across. 13 times 1 is 13. 3 times 2 is 6. So now we will divide 13 by 6 so that we can get back to a whole number. I know that 6 times 2 is 12, and I will have 1/6 left over. So that's my final answer, 2 and 1/6, and that is cups of water. And our final problem for the day, you've worked so hard. Let's change our color. Evan ran 9 3/5 miles in 1 hour and 24 minutes. Find the average number of minutes it took him to complete 1 mile. So we have 9 3/5 miles. So 24 minutes, 1 mile. So what we're going to do is we're going to have divide 84 Oh, it's 24 minutes. That can't, 1 hour and 24 minutes. Okay, 60 minutes plus 24 minutes. That's 84 minutes. So we'll divide that by 9 3/5. So we will put a 1 under the 84. So our first fraction will be 84 divided by 1, and then we will convert 9 3/5 to an improper fraction. 9 times 5 is 45, plus 3 is 48/5. Now we will rewrite this as 84 over 1 times 5 over 48. So we can definitely simplify this, and it behooves us to do so. So the 5 and the 1 will stand, but we can divide 48 and 84. Let's divide them by, I think we can divide them both by 6. Yep, 48 divided by 6 is 8. 84 divided by 6 is 14, and we can even simplify it further. Let me change the color. We can divide 8 by 2 and get 4, and 14 by 2 and get 7. So now let's rewrite that so we can follow along. 7 over 1 times 5 over 4. So 7 times 5 is 35. 4 times 1 is 4. And let's divide 35 by 4 to convert that back to a mixed number. And I know that 4 times 8 is 32, which would give me 3/4 left over. So the average number of minutes it took him to complete 1 mile is 8 3/4 minutes. And that's to complete 1 mile. So good job. You worked very hard today. I'm proud of you. All I can say is they get easier as you practice, practice, practice. And as you've seen, you have to read these applications very carefully because sometimes they involve making conversions that you didn't notice the first time you read it. And I went a little bit quick. I hope you can pause the video and go a little slower. I went a little bit quick so the video wouldn't be too long to upload. But I know that as you continue to practice, you will be great. I am so proud of you.